This is basic throwing mechanics for baseball. I'm Coach Bougie and I coach catchers online from around the world. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through high-level throwing mechanics, common mistakes, and some drills that you can do at home regardless of your age. I'm not nearly as good at teaching throwing mechanics as I am catching mechanics, but I've learned a lot from my friends Bobby O'Neill and Joey Levitt, who are online pitching coaches as well. So high level, there's a few big things that we're trying to achieve. One of the biggest things is this initial arm pull. This is where you'll see some really crazy arm shapes from different players. Sometimes you'll even see a straight arm here. What we want to get to is ultimately where our arms are at shoulder level and our hands are about 90 degrees in front of us. From here, the next movement in the arm path is learning how to rotate. Okay, so this rotation of the hand up where our elbow stays still and is not dipping down, this is really, really key. All right, so that's kind of high level arm path. So we pull, we get to this position, we flip, and then from there, we rotate, and what we want to have is this elbow in line with the shoulder. What a lot of people will do, this gets into mistakes a little bit, is get this elbow in front. So if you take a side view video and the elbow gets in front, that means that they're pushing and not really rotating and whipping. They're losing out on a ton of power. So high level, we're looking to get up to our slot, be able to flip without dipping, and then when we rotate, to stay back, we'll have layback when we actually throw, and then boom, we actually finish and release. On the lower half, this took me a ton of time to learn, but basically we're looking for the knee to rotate down. Bobby calls this hip rotation. I thought this was hip rotation. Technically, it's pelvic rotation. Hip rotation is just like this, is like your humerus rotation or shoulder rotation. Your hip rotation is just your knee twisting in. And sometimes when I work with players on this, what they'll do is they'll rotate, but they'll straighten that heel and straighten this leg. That's not it. We want to hold this bend. That heel almost comes up a little bit and we get into this nice strong position. This initiates the first half of the turn, and then this front leg pushing through this hip initiates the last half of the turn. There's a really good video of Trevor Bauer explaining how this goes and then this goes, and that's what allows our hips to actually rotate. So it's not just turning here, it's the knee rotating the whole femur in the hip socket, and then boom, pushing that hip. Now again, I'm not the top expert. You should check out Tread Athletics, Trevor Bauer, Bobby, Joey. But from everything that I've learned, I think this is a pretty decent high-level overview of throwing mechanics. So let's talk about one more thing high level about the sequencing of how this all works. It should go from the ground up. I saw a really good video from Tread Athletics, and they talked about how it sequences up and then back down as you go. So here's what they mean. The knee goes, the hip goes, the shoulder goes, the elbow goes, the hand goes, and then the wrist, and then the elbow, and then the scap, and then the hip. And so it's this sequencing up and then down. And that's what you want when we are really working on throwing mechanics. Truly the biggest thing that we're working on is sequencing and movement patterns. So now that we have the high level overview of throwing mechanics, what we're gonna do is talk about some of the most common mistakes. Hey, if you're liking this so far, I have a bunch of free catching resources. Just go to catchingmadesimple.com/free and you'll see them there. The biggest mistake by far is not being able to pull and get to this position. Now you might say, okay, look at some of these MLB players, they get long like this. Ultimately, what has to happen is they get back to their elbows being at shoulder height and then this hand flipping. If this doesn't happen, you cannot create any whip. So one of the things that Bobby taught me, and this is from Dave Coggin, who created Pocket Path, is from here, turning the fingers, pulling the elbow. And so if you look at our elbow, we want to pull the ball right through the spot that the elbow was in. A lot of players will get ball dominant, is what they call it, where they go here or they get here. We want to have the ball follow the elbow till we get into a really strong throwing position. So don't let players get extended like this. Try to get them to feel that ball following that elbow as they get into a really strong launch position with everything at shoulder height. From here, the next biggest mistake is the elbow dipping. And so that's because we get here and then the elbow goes down. So to train that, to fix it, what we want to do is we want to get here and learn to flip and get there. And then when we rotate, we're here. So one of the other big mistakes is this elbow pushing. And so if you take a video of your player and they're here at release, what that means is we are now using the front muscles rather than the back muscles, and we're not actually able to whip. That's not what we want. When you see a good pitcher, you don't say, wow, it looks like that guy is really strong. You say, wow, that guy's really whippy. It's because he's sequenced correctly and he's using the back muscles and the tendons and ligaments and not the muscles in the front of his body trying to push. Another common mistake that you're gonna see all the time is this knee collapsing together. I actually have a video of me my freshman year in college that my dad took of me throwing like this. I didn't know any of this when I played. Basically, the issue with the knee coming is it means that we're not using our backside or our front side in our lower half effectively. And so what Bobby explained to me when he helped me fix it, I threw a ball with more rotation and more zip than I ever have in my whole life, and it just shocked me. But basically what happens is when you look at this, if our glute is turned on, our leg should come up. If it's not turned on, then it breaks and it gets into this shape. And I'll explain how he helped me do that in just a minute when we talk about some drills that you could do. But the other issue is what's called front leg stability, where that front side isn't actually pushing against and allowing me to go up, but it's just kind of staying there. So if you have a player who gets here, that's a leg issue. They're not sequencing and engaging their lower half effectively, and they're not throwing against a stiff front side. So those are some of the big common mistakes. Now here are some drills that you can actually do. First, I would just grab a ball and I would really work on this. And so they talk about going from different arm slots. You know, as a catcher, oftentimes you're coming from a little bit higher, but really what we want to feel is we want to feel this elbow get back. I like to work with catchers to get to a 45-degree angle here. I know they work with a lot of pitchers and position players to get to like a 90-degree angle, but we want to be right here with our arms in our hands, right? Don't be out. Don't be in, not hands too close, not hands too far, not elbows down, not elbows up, not hands high. Everything flat at shoulder height with this glove pointed forwards. Some people even teach a little bit of this as well. So once we get this going, one of the next best drills that you can do is just to turn sideways and feel this flip. As catchers go to throw with a short arm stroke, sometimes that ball comes up to the ear a little bit quicker, but generally we want to feel this here and flip, and then as we go. Another drill that we can do is once we're in a good launch position, we can feel both of these working in sequence together. And as you do this, what you should feel, and I feel it right now even as I'm doing it, the scap is really loading up. The tendency here, right, is that elbow leaks forward, and then what happens is when you turn, your elbow's in front. So we gotta get that elbow in that position, and we wanna keep it here. As we rotate, we should feel that pinch in the back, okay? And this is the drill that Bobby helped me with, that all of a sudden when I threw, my eyes opened and I was like, wow, that's the best ball that I've ever thrown with the most backspin. Basically, he had me go from a split squat like this and had me imagine like I had 225 on my back doing a reverse lunge. Then I would throw, and the key was not to open my hips, but keep my hips square, and I would get closed, get my shoulder loaded, my scap loaded, flip, and throw. And when I did this, I got engaged into my glutes and I got a strong front side, and all of a sudden I had more whip on the ball and more backspin on the ball than I ever had in my whole life. So practice those at home, and if you like this, then you're gonna love me working on transfers and footwork with a college team. Check it out right over here. I'm Coach Bougie. I'll catch you later.